Hi, welcome to my first test. See how the screen capture goes for this Prezi tutorial. We're going to start with some basic stuff. First of all, when you ask Prezi to start a new Prezi, this is what it'll give you some options. There are some very cool pre-made Prezi templates, as you can see, and they're constantly coming out with new ones, which is very exciting. But I would recommend, particularly if you're making something where you want to make sure that what you're trying to get across conceptually is very clear. A lot of times these pre-made templates are very limiting, and you can certainly adapt them for your own purposes, but that could get more complicated because you're working with the pre-established templates. So I suggest when you're starting out, it's really good to learn in a blank Prezi. So that's what we're going to start with. And yes, this is incredibly boring looking. This is about as basic as a Prezi gets. It also starts you off with a circle frame. That's what this guy is right here. He's a circle frame. Circle frames are the worst, particularly if you need to worry about doing texts or if your pictures happen to be rectangles or squares. So right away, I'm going to say, you know what? No, I don't want this circle frame. So to change the style of a frame, you click on it so it's selected. And then you go up right here and it gives you your options. So I could turn it into a invisible frame that will just look, you won't be able to see anything once you're in presentation mode. And visible frames are incredibly useful. They give you a lot of flexibility. You can do a lot of different things with them. But for now, I think I'm going to go with a rectangle frame, which is also boring, but definitely more usable. You can see in this very basic theme that everything's blue and black with a white background and a slight gradient of color there at the bottom to give it a little bit of dimension. Sometimes it looks really nice. Sometimes it's really annoying and you would rather not have that gradient. So here's how we make some changes. If you go here to themes, give you lots of options. And you can see here it gives you a clear idea of what all the colors and fonts are going to be for this. So let's say I want fresh, which, given what I have on the screen at the moment, looks pretty dull, but it gives you an idea of what I'm working with. One of the most exciting things about playing around with themes is when you really know what you want, you can go down here in the theme section and go to Customize Current Theme. And this gives you a lot more freedom. They even added a recent feature where you can upload a 3D background of your choice. Problem is most photos you're going to be using are not going to be high enough quality. You're going to see it'll be pixelated when you use it. But if you get a good enough photo, that can be a really cool option. So I can change the background, and I don't like this background, so I'm going to change it to, oh, that's not much better. Let's do a light color. So you can change background, fonts, and colors, which is extremely helpful. Quite a few font options, and of course you have the two titles in the body font. So it gives you a certain degree of flexibility there. And then you can also, to a certain degree, control what the circles and the frames are like. So, ooh, actually looks quite nice. I can see there's that gradient again, and the sort of rounded corners on the rectangle frame here. And there we go. And this is sort of the highlighter function, which can be very useful when you want to draw attention to certain parts of text. So there, I like that color scheme a little bit better. So we're going to stick with that. That should have happened. Well, let's pretend that it did. So one of the trickiest parts about mastering Prezi is getting used to the fact that you're not dealing with just 2D space, that you have you can zoom in and zoom out, that there are many layers that you're operating on, and that's what makes it so dynamic when people are watching your presentation, but unfortunately it can make it much more complicated when you're actually designing it. I highly suggest that if you're using a laptop, that you get a mouse to attach to your laptop. It gives you a lot more control. If not, you can, so I'm using the mouse to zoom in and out right now. If I unplug my mouse, I can use 2 fingers on my tracking pad to do the same. But it requires a different level of dexterity to do it that way, particularly when you're working with a lot of different stuff. One thing I've noticed about learning how to use Prezi and watching other people learn how to use Prezi, it's a bit like driving a car. The actual mechanics of what you're doing are fairly simple. But actually doing them effectively, particularly if you're trying to do a lot of things at once and think about a lot of things, it takes you have to get used to it. have to really be able to do it without thinking before you can do it quickly and effectively. Otherwise, you spend a lot of your time focusing on details. So here's another kind of frame. This is a bracket frame. As you can see, as you adjust the size, the thickness changes as well. These are very flexible for holding text and pictures. Gives you a lot more room, and it has a slightly less cluttered look than the filled-in rectangle. So much is important about design in Prezi is making sure that resist the temptation to put in as much as possible and keep everything clean. If you're thinking about putting it up in a very large space, if you're using a projector, or even if someone is looking at it on their screen, you really have to make sure that you're not overwhelming the information you're trying to communicate. That can also be a problem when, let's use for an example. So let's say this is my first frame. I'm going to build another frame, go to frames and arrows. I'm going to do another bracket, keep this consistent, and I'm going to put it within this one. So it automatically added it to the path for that. With frames, it'll do that. For most other items, it won't. It just assumes that's the next step I want to go to in my presentation. And let's say for now it's right. I'm going to do another one and do it within this. So I'm layering. And right now, even now you can kind of look at it, you can see it's actually creating an illusion of depth. Once we add movement to it, it'll be even more exaggerated. Okay, I'm going to zoom in so I can actually add that. Oh, no, I have been disconnected from Prezi. Well, this was a nice first try. Clearly needs a little bit of work and also maybe a better internet connection. So I'm going to press end now. This was my first attempt at a tutorial.